Before we begin, we want to acknowledge that some stories and discussions in this episode of Radiant Resilience may touch on sensitive and potentially triggering topics. These may include themes of discussion of grief and loss, mentions of burnout and mental health struggles, brief references to childhood trauma and parental death. Our goal is to share real life experiences in a respectful and empathetic manner, offering insights into the complexities of the human spirit and the journey towards resilience. However, we understand that some content might be difficult for listeners. We encourage you to prioritize your well being and discretion when deciding to listen. Please remember this podcast is not a substitute for professional advice or support. If you find yourself needing assistance, we urge you to seek help from qualified professionals or trusted support systems. Your mental and emotional health is important to us. Thank you for your courage and for joining us in a space of understanding and compassion. Welcome back to Radiant Resilience, everyone. I have another returning guest, my dear friend, Kellyn Van Laere, who was on episode number 2. So my second full-length episode. If you have not listened to that one, I highly recommend going back and listening to that one before you listen to this one. You can listen to this one too, but I think that you'll have a little bit more insight into Kellen and her life story and how things work in her mind. Kellen is 35 years old and runs her own business, married for almost 9 years and with her husband for 15. They have a 3-year-old son. She is a massage therapist here in Denver and an incredible one if anyone's looking for one. But yeah, so Kellen is back to talk to us a little bit about, she went on a healing retreat journey a couple weekends ago in Belize from the time we're recording this. And so I thought it would be great to have her back on to talk about what she learned, the experience, some epiphanies she had, because everybody that's come on here has talked about their trauma. And I thought it would be nice to hear somebody's healing process for once. So, Kellen, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. I'm good. How are you?
Good. Okay, before we hit record, I was asking her exactly what the name of this healing retreat was that she went on. So why don't you introduce it as that and then tell us what it was all about?
Yeah, definitely. So my friend Gabrielle has started running these retreats. This was the second one she's done. So this one she called Reset and Regulate, a journey to reclaim joy, wellness, and resilience in Belize. She, on a general aspect, kind of calls them like burnout retreats. Main goal is just coming into a space where your main goal is like learning coping mechanisms, if I can talk this morning.
It's okay, it's early.
I know. And ways to like not only identify like when you're in those like fight versus flight and freeze and shut down like stages, how to help yourself get back to a more regulated and non-stressed out state. And yeah, so it was 6 days total that I was gone. Both days, both the day getting out there and the day coming back were pretty long travel days. But so it was like four real hands-on days of the retreat. But it was great. I had an amazing time. We had an incredible group. We connected so quickly right away. It was incredible that 9 people could just be best friends in 4 days, but it happened.
I think it's so interesting when you get a bunch of people like that together because everybody's there for the same purpose, right? Everybody's there because they're seeking healing for their different situations and whatever, but they're also people that want to be there. Like they're there because they want to be there. They want to do the work. They want to figure it out. And then you just connect with those people. And I don't know, I've done a couple of retreats and I'm just like, can I just start a commune with all these people? Because they're amazing human beings. Like,
Right?
and that's what we want to surround ourselves with, ideally.
Oh, yeah. And everybody that was there, we literally, all of us just hit it off immediately. Like, I turned to my friend. It was like, so from the time that I woke up the day that I was leaving until like stepped off the boat onto the island was 13 and a half hours. So it was a
Oh
long
my
day to get there.
gosh. Yeah.
But we were all, and basically by the time we got there, There was four of us on the last boat out to the island, and it was pouring rain, and just we were drenched, like just soaked, even though we had rain jackets on and everything, but there was no escaping getting wet. Me and Rachel, one of the girls that I met, literally on so my whole journey was basically Denver to Houston to Belize City. And then we had to take a little tiny plane to Dangriga and then a boat out to we were at Thatch Key, one of the little keys off the island, or one of the keys off of the coast of Belize was where we were at. But Rachel, one of the girls I met, her and I just couldn't help but just laugh on the boat ride out because we were just like, this is what we're in. Can't change it. Might as well just laugh about it. And we were just in hysterics because we're just drenched.
It's funny. It's an interesting think about. You're all coming there to do this healing journey, and the first thing that happens is you just get absolutely fucking soaked by the boat. So it's like life raining on you. I feel like it's
Right.
a little bit of a, yeah, it's ironic that happened. So
I know. Yeah. But it was good. It was nice we got off the boat and we had to sign some intake paperwork for the resort, but then went and took a nice shower and put on some dry clothes and then went and met everybody. Like they would always do every night. They'd do a little happy hour where they do some drinks and little appetizers and stuff like that. And so met back up with everybody, and then we went to dinner, and I was talking to my friend Gabrielle, the one that was running all these and or running the retreat, and I was like, are you doing any sort of like icebreaker or get to know you kind of thing tonight for being the first night? And she was like, I had something planned, but you guys all did it so organically. I don't feel like I need to. And I was like, all right.
the boat was the icebreaker.
Yeah, it was amazing. Like she made a post today that was 2 weeks ago, literally today, that we all left to start our adventure out there. And she was like, it's so crazy that you can have this small group of people that it was like a reunion, which she would always pull cards for us. The first day that we had group and the last day, she pulled the same card. So it was the reunion card. That was like basically like this like feminine energy, like coming together and everything. And so it was just like, and that's what we felt like. We would just all connected so quickly. And which honestly, I feel like for me made the retreat even better for me because I felt so comfortable around these women and just so connected. I felt like I could be vulnerable and I would be like it would be welcomed, like I would have the support and like they would be right there to just be like it's okay, like you're with a bunch of therapists, like majority of them were all either social workers or therapists, and then me, I was me massage therapist, one other girl, she does more networking and marketing stuff, but pretty much everybody else is a therapist in some regard. Obviously, that's their main role in life. But
so were they there to learn for themselves or learn for like their patients, clients, whatever?
I think generally, like everybody was there for themselves,
Okay.
but also to learn some things that they could take back to their clients. And even for me, a lot of my friend uses polyvagal theory, which is basically it's a specific theory of like how to look at your nervous system and break it down, help regulate, stuff like that. And so I was really excited to learn more about that because I had never really learned much about it. And even just like the first day, we went into depth with it, and I was like, how have I not learned about this? It is so closely tied, especially with the cranial sacral work that I do. And even just in general, massage helps to like calm down the nervous system and bring you back and like a little bit of self-care stuff. So I loved that aspect because I was like, oh man, like I can use this as like another thing for my clients. Like when I'm talking about cranial sacral or I'm talking about even reflexology and some of the points that I do, like on the ears or on certain places. Hey, this is tied to this theory of how to regulate your nervous system. And so it's just one more tool in your toolbox. So it was nice. I went for myself, but I think in the long run, I learned some tools as well.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. Yeah. So do you want to just touch on some of the things that you learned and some of the experiences you had and while you were there?
Yeah, definitely. In general, daily we woke up and did yoga, which was voluntary, like you didn't have to go, but I went every day except for the last day. I just needed to sleep. So I listened to my body because that's one thing that Gabrielle talks about all the time is listen to your body. Rest is a good thing, even though your brain might be going like, I have so many things to do. I shouldn't be resting. Sometimes resting first will allow you to do all the things you need to get done.
And I don't know about you,
um,
but that stuff, like when I've gone on the couple of retreats that I've gone on, which were not exactly like this, but still healing in their own way, like it was so packed full of stuff that I was exhausted at the end, like
yeah,
emotionally exhausted. It was good. It was all the stuff that happened was great. But I was like, I need like alone time to sit and process everything that
yeah.
just happened to me. So
Which I think she did a wonderful job of laying out the schedule because you had a decent amount of time like each day. So like Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday were like really like the retreat days. And Friday, Sunday, and Monday were all pretty much the same. Saturday we our like kind of group was going out and snorkeling. So we did that for gosh, I think we left on the boat at 8:30 in the morning. We didn't get back until like noon, 12:30, something like that. So we were out there for a little while, but for the most part, it was like, yeah, wake up, do yoga, we'd go do breakfast, and then we would go and do like a group session. And so she would usually, like the first day, we really dived into polyvagal theory, and she had us do like a little art project where we kind of broke down the different stages, you could say, basically, or principles. There's different kind of words that you can use for it, but basically you have your ventral vagal, which is like your rest and digest. That's like when you're calm, you're good, it's like your green zone. And then you have your sympathetic, which is your fight versus your flight, where you're like, you're a little overstimulated, you're a little bit agitated, but you're still functioning, you're okay, you're just like, oh. And then you go into your dorsal vagal, which is basically like the freeze, shut down, like your red zone, like you're burnt out, you're frustrated, you're angry, you're depressed, you can't even function kind of thing. We talked a lot about what does each stage look like. And then she had us do an art project where you basically started with write down some words that describe how you feel like when you're in that stage, and then we used a lot of stickers which were great. She found some
love
great
it. When
ones.
adults like stickers, we sometimes forget that we like stickers, but I love
Right, I love stickers. I refound my love for stickers.
I love that.
And then one thing we did with that one specifically, we talked a lot about triggers and glimmers. So triggers are obviously things that can trigger you to jump to from the green zone to that yellow zone or the red zone. And for me, some of the ones I put for if I'm in the green zone and I'm jumping to fight versus flight is I'm overly tired, loud noises, being overstimulated. Like I get very overstimulated by loud noises very sometimes. It's just okay, we're gonna turn off the TV. We're just gonna go outside for a second and like breathe because there's too much going on.
I
Like,
absolutely love quiet. And I don't know if it's because of what I do for work. Like the salon, sometimes when it gets so busy in there, you've been there before, like it's loud. There's
oh
a
yeah.
lot of stuff going on, and I get like completely overstimulated at work like every day. And I have to engage with my clients, which I love, but by the end of the day, I'm pretty exhausted.
Yeah.
And just, I don't know, I have a 40-minute commute door to the salon and back home. And I just love that decompression time of just sitting there. And sometimes I don't do anything. Sometimes I just sit and I don't have music on and I don't have I just need the quiet. And I think it's
Yeah.
really important if you do get overstimulated by noise and activity and things like that. Colin is the opposite. He almost always has music on, always. And it's all different types of music. So sometimes it's just calming background music, but
Sure.
sometimes I don't even want that on. I want like silence.
I know. I'm the same. There are days where I like won't even have music on. And we just moved. I know you know this, but for your
Yeah.
listeners, we just moved. So now my commute in the morning is the same because I take Calvin to school and then I go to work. And then Jake picks him up in the afternoons because I work a little bit later. But now my commute home used to be like literally 7 minutes without traffic, and even 12 if there was traffic. And now we're only like 3 miles a little bit further west than where we were, but it makes a difference because I have to take more side roads. There's really not, and even the highway is such a shit show most of the
Yeah,
time
Denver
anyway. So
traffic is terrible these
yeah,
days.
so I have a little bit longer of a commute, and that was actually something that I said I think it was the last day. One of the other girls, I think it was Rachel, the same girl I was on the boat with. She mentioned like because she had a daughter on my birthday. So 2 weeks before I had Calvin, so we really connected about that too. That we were
Yeah.
pregnant at the same time, and like through COVID, which was just like highly don't recommend being pregnant during a pandemic. But so we really connected on that. And one of the things she shared was, I really just need to like, when I'm leaving work, like I need to take a minute for myself and process my day before I jump into mom mode because like I'm bringing stuff home. And I was like, oh my gosh, like that totally speaks to me because I used to have a really good routine of as soon as I finished with my last client, I would like clean up and do my thing and take a minute to just slough off the day and all of everybody else's energy that I don't need to carry and everything. And as soon as we had Calvin, I get into that, okay, I need to get home. I need to like help Jake out, so I very quickly clean up and I just like race home. And I've noticed that has not been a good thing. Like I need to
Oh,
take a minute and just like in the long run, if it's 5 minutes, it's not going to make a difference at the end of the day. And if I can walk in the door and be like a better wife, a better mom, a better person, if I just take that time and like decompress from my day and process everything and even just have time to myself for a minute too. So I've been really enjoying having a slightly longer commute on my way home too.
yeah. Everybody's always, you drive all the way to Castle Rock from Colorado Springs. I'm like, it's really not that bad. And that's my
Yeah.
time. That's my quiet me time. And I mean, I'm frequently, as you know, catching up on Marco Polos, but also that's just my time. And so I can, or I don't have to. I can sit in the quiet if I need to. I can listen to whatever music I want to listen to if I want to. Uh,
Right.
I can listen to an audiobook, but it's really
Yeah.
not that bad. So I don't know. As much as sounds nice to be 5 minutes from work, also, I
Oh,
enjoy it. I don't really mind having that long of a drive.
yeah. Yeah, definitely. I'm probably more close to Colin. Like I will just like jam out to music most of the time on my way
Yeah.
home. But sometimes I do being quiet. But also one of the things that with that we talked about, you have your triggers and then you also have glimmers. And glimmers are like the good things. Like triggers are obviously like the bad things that can set you off, but glimmers are like the good things that like bring you back. Being in silence or jamming out to music on your drive home can be even something as simple as that can be a glimmer. It's just something easy that'll help regulate your nervous system and bring you back to that more centered and the green zone thing too. I definitely learned that it's hard for me to identify both my triggers and my glimmers. Triggers, you would think that would be something that you could easily identify. We like the things that usually set you off, but sometimes it's really hard to put a name to it and to really just sit down. And so, yeah. And I think glimmers more so like triggers were a little bit easier for me to identify, but my glimmers were definitely a little bit harder for me to be like, what do I do? Do I do anything to help myself? Maybe I need to work on that. So,
Yeah.
there were a lot of things that came up throughout the whole weekend of just, hey, this is something that I feel like I need to work on.
Yeah. So talk a
But
little bit about what you did
yeah.
figure out what your glimmers were.
I did. So some of the things that I wrote down were like taking a bath, which I love. I've only had one. I have an amazing new bathtub that I'm so excited about in
Yay.
the new house. And gotten like one bath. We've been here for a month. I keep trying to tell myself like, hey, we've only been here for a month. We've got plenty of time. We're still trying to get everything set up, but And it's also summer and I take hot baths.
Same. I bathe every day in the wintertime because I just try it. I love getting in a hot bath at
Oh,
night and reading, and definitely one of my absolute favorites. So Carrie, who's a girl I've had on this podcast a couple of times, she lives in California and she has an outdoor bathtub, and it is
ooh,
incredible. Like she thinks she goes in her swimsuit or whatever because it's in like her backyard. But I am
sure.
like, she posts it all the time and I am so jealous of her outdoor bathtub. Like amazing. I'm like, I need one of those, but I don't know if I can have one in Colorado when it gets below however like cold temperatures. She's in California, so I don't know what
It's a
the
little different.
pipe situation is there, but
Right. Well, yeah, I'm very excited to use my bathtub, especially come winter. But that's definitely one of my glimmers is like taking a bath, like taking a moment for myself. Sometimes I will listen to my friend Gabrielle does sound baths. So that was a huge part of this weekend as well, is like her doing the sound baths. And she's done them like through Instagram lives before, and then she'll save them to her page so you can go back and listen to them. And so sometimes I just throw some headphones on and I go and I just listen to a sound bath while I'm in a bath. And oh my
oh.
gosh, like there those nights I sleep like the dead.
That sounds magical. I haven't done too many sound baths, but I would like to do more of them. My energy healer that I work with, she does sound baths all the time, but in-person ones, but she lives in California too. So I'm like, "Ah, I want to come to your sound bath. Can I just fly out there for a sound bath really quick?"
That was honestly probably my favorite part of the weekend was the sound baths that she did. Because listening to it through audio and stuff like that, you do get like the benefits from it. But when you're in person and those vibrations are literally just you're feeling it at your core. Oh, it was incredible.
Yeah,
You can
yeah,
feel like
I do love a
everything.
good sound bath. Yeah.
Yeah. And she, oh my gosh, she's so good at it. She has the two like normal Tibetan like singing bowls, and then she has this set of they're gorgeous. They're like clear but like iridescent, rainbowy colored.
Ooh.
They're an alchemy set, so they have precious metals in them.
Oh,
And
cool.
they sound amazing. Like that it's hard to describe, but it is just this sound that is it's so smooth. It's bliss. It's pure bliss. And
I
then she's
love
got
that.
a drum and these little like rain sounding like things. And it's all she's doing intuitively, like what she feels like the group needed, or because every sound bath was different.
Yeah.
But she did one every day. And those were that was definitely my favorite part. Those were incredible.
Yeah.
And being
So
in person.
yeah. So back to your glimmers. What else? We got bath on there and obviously sound baths. What else?
Yeah, yeah, baths definitely a glimmer. Which we were joking about at one point. I did in my free shutdown zone. My glimmers were strong cocktail, edibles, and working out.
Nice. Nice.
Obviously, I need to numb things when I'm in shutdown phase.
Sometimes that's how we have to get through it. And then afterwards, you can process it once you're more regulated.
Exactly, right? You can't really process a whole lot when you're in
That's
that mood
true.
anyway.
It's true. I've referenced this book before on the podcast, but I don't know if you've read Oprah's book with the neuroscientist that I literally can never remember his name, but it's called What Happened to You. That's what it's called. And this neuroscientist guy talks a lot about what happens to the brain and how your brain processes things in different stages. And if you're highly dysregulated for whatever reason, you literally cannot think clearly. Like your brain
Yeah.
does not process things the same way. Like you cannot. So that's why I think sometimes it's good if you get in a fight with your spouse or something like that to walk away for a bit and then revisit it because you're not thinking clearly. You're gonna say things you regret. You're gonna do things you regret so many times. And I never really considered that a brain functioning thing. I always like, because I get that way when I'm stressed, when I have anxiety. Like I like when it's all heightened, I'm just not
Yeah.
thinking about things clearly and in the same way. That happens to me a lot when I'm traveling and in stressful situations. But it was just so interesting to hear him explain how that actually works in the brain. I just thought it was me being an overly emotional human being.
Oh no, absolutely not.
But it's actually like your brain cannot function properly when it's at
Yeah.
that heightened state. So I think it is okay to try to get through that state and then work through processing through it so that maybe the next time you can come out of that state a little bit quicker or whatever.
Yeah. There's literally a reason why they like quote unquote like dorsal vagal, like that red zone is literally shut down. Like your nervous system is in a slightly shut down state because it's so overworked, so overstimulated that it's shutting down other systems just to be able to like keep you standing up and like breathing and doing all the things that your body needs to do. So yeah, if you're in that state, you're not going to be able to like think clearly or say the things that you should be saying and everything. So yeah, like you need to get yourself calmed down and everything, which I wish my husband would let me do sometimes when we get in fights. He just wants to keep going and I'm like, I need a minute.
And I have that situation with Colin sometimes too, where because he does like to work through it, talk about it. I realized something about myself recently that I guess not that recently, but when I was younger and I would get in trouble by my parents, whatever the reason was, in my teen years, I realized that it would be over faster if I completely shut down and didn't say anything, didn't talk about anything, just shut down, listen to my parents yell at me, and then at the end, say I'm sorry, everybody hugs and moves on. And I brought that into my relationship when Colin and I met because we met in high school. So the
Yeah.
first like few years of our relationship, and this is still something I struggle with today. So I guess it's not just the first few years, but literally, when we get in fights, I shut down. I will like just completely, I won't talk, I won't say anything because in my brain, I've taught myself that's the fastest way to get through this like crisis. And it's
Yeah.
really not probably great. But then I've realized more recently that I need that space. As much as I would like to fix it right away and work through it right away, I need to come off of that like
Yeah.
heightened state.
Yeah. Same. I'm the same way. Cause if I am like too aggravated and too frustrated, I will snap. I will say mean things that I don't mean, but in the moment, I'm so angry. I'm so far away from where I should be. So, yeah, and that was a huge thing of this weekend and just everything in general of just like learning how to identify like where you're at, where you want to be, and how to get there too. Life in general is a journey. We're always constantly personal growth, personal development. We're learning how we are and we change and we grow and we shift and we have to mold to those changes. It's all part of the journey, right?
I know. And I just recently started realizing that I don't know if we ever get to the end of that like personal growth journey, which I think is
Right.
an interesting concept because I think a lot of us, especially like this day and age, are chasing that. I don't know. I guess I always thought once I started working on myself and healing myself and doing like eventually you get to a point where you don't need to do the work anymore. But I don't think that's true.
Yeah, I used to always think that too. And I just think, especially the older we get and just life in general, you just are constantly working on something. It's not like we're like having to work on all the things all the time, but there's definitely usually at least something that we're working on or trying to work on
Or just when you get through working on the previous thing, something else happens, right? Because life is still
Right.
happening around you. So,
Yeah,
whether it's a
exactly.
death or a trauma or I don't know, like whatever it is, there's always something to work through. So I think it's also, I'm trying to like retrain my brain to be like, just be a better person, be a good person, try to live your best life, happiest life, and then make that be the end goal instead of I'm going to be fixed and I'm going to be the most perfect person on the face of the planet and nothing's going to
Right.
bother me because that's just not true, right?
Yeah. Well, it's so funny because this last week, excuse me, this last week, like talking to clients after being back, they're like, how was it? Like, how was the retreat? Are you fixed now? And
Oh
I'm
my
like,
gosh.
okay, I'm on the right path. Yes. Like this weekend, it was a great opportunity for me to step away and focus on me. But a lot of stuff that like came up is I mean, it's going to be a process. Like, yeah, I processed a lot of shit that I know I needed to process. And like, a lot of stuff came up, some with my parents and stuff like that. But also just like in general, I don't think I realized that I was not in a great place like going into it. I didn't realize that I was just like, I had a lot of like anger and
Mm.
just, I called it prickliness. I used a cactus several
Yeah.
times and like pretzels and like angry dinosaurs. I just didn't realize that I was just in this, yeah, just like holding on to so much anger and like resentment and just
Mm.
like fear and all this, that I was just like, why am I, this is not me. This is not the person that I am and I want to be and who I was. Like, where is this coming from? Why am I holding on to this shit? Like, I don't need
Yeah.
to be holding on to it. That was a huge thing for me and just like a huge release of just, oh, just let it go. Blah, get rid of this. I do not need to be holding on to it. So
But sometimes we need that guidance to work through that stuff. So, and then doing something like what you did also forced your hand at it, right? Because if you didn't go, you might still just be feeling those same feelings.
yeah, definitely. So I'm glad I went. It was so good just for me and just being able to recognize things that I do need to work on and coming out of it. And just the last day, I cried so much, but the good cries. But Gabrielle did an amazing sound bath. Both Sunday and Monday were huge for me. I had some huge shifts. She did the sound bath at the beginning of our group instead of at the end.
Mm.
And whatever those sound baths do to my body and my brain. And she did a chakra cleansing guided meditation sound bath on Sunday. And then I had just a huge, just like realization. And that was the day our like art project was doing, you had to write how you feel in your like current like burnt out self,
Mm.
and then how you feel as your like higher self, and then you had to write a message from your like burnt out self or from your higher self to your burnt out self.
Oh,
And
wow.
up until that point I had been very like, all the art projects that we had done. There was one I did. So like we did the 3 stages one and I had a lot of stickers. And this art project that we did the second day on Saturday after we came back from snorkeling, I literally did all stickers. Like it was literally
Oh,
all
I
stickers.
love it. If you
And
guys
I
are,
had like the only 2 words that I had on there were like move along. And there was some
interesting.
stickers that had like words in them. But Sunday I was like all words almost. Like I had all these like terms, and I don't know if you want me to share all of this with you, but I basically like that was like a huge realization point for like me recognizing that I was thinking so low of myself. Like I had put out my own fire, I was dimming my own light, I felt like I wasn't worthy of anything. And just like coming out of that day, I was just like, holy shit, like what am I doing to myself?
Mm.
And then on Monday too, that was, she did another sound bath at the beginning, and our little art project was a path. So you
Oh.
did where you started and where you're not exactly like ending, but like where you're going, like where's your path taking you. And this was the one I just like completely lost it because I just had this huge shift of just, and even coming out of the sound bath, Cynthia was one of the girls. She was sitting next to me, and I just turned to her and I was like, I feel like I need to cry. And she was like, just let it out. And she was like, do you need a touch? Like sometimes, like just touching. And she touched my shoulder, and I was like, no, she's like, it's not ready yet. And then she shared her experience of what she felt with the sound bath. And she talked about like her dog, and unfortunately she's lost both of her parents as well. She's a little bit older, but she lost her dad. He was like the same age when my dad died.
Oh, wow.
And we connected on that as well. And she had this image of like her dad holding her dog, and that's all I needed. And I started crying, not like bawling, but like the tears started flowing. And then that day I just like, I could barely get through describing like what I did for my project, because it was just like, it was like a thank you to these girls of just, I felt so comfortable with you guys that I was able to have these shifts. And yeah, and it was just like, it was like happy tears, like thankful tears, and just like huge realization for myself that like I am worthy of things, and I am bright light, and I have,
Yes.
I'm letting too many of the wrong people snuff me out, and I'm not going towards the good things as much. I'm holding on to the things that I probably shouldn't be holding on to, and all of that. So the last 2 days were huge for me, and I just have so much gratitude for everybody in that group for holding space continuously. And everybody, we all were just bawling as we were sharing our final things. And so it was really good. It was, and I just, I want to hug them every day. All those girls were so amazing. So I just want to go back and be with them.
I know it's such, and it's just so cool to be around like-minded people and people who share your passion for healing. And I think, again, like knowing you're not alone, right? And even though each of your stories, I'm sure, were completely different, and what you've been through in life is completely different, and with even some similarities, like just knowing you're not alone and knowing people are also struggling and you're not the only one and you're not doing this life by yourself. You have other people that care and want to help and also want to help themselves, I think is so huge. So huge.
Oh yeah. Yeah, definitely. It was, oh yeah, it was incredible.
Yeah. So how are you feeling now that it's been a little bit of time being home? I feel like you've probably gotten back into a normal routine of life. And I feel like sometimes that stuff can all go to the wayside when you get back into your daily grind.
Yeah, it was definitely like day one being back. It was almost a slap in the face immediately. Cause like the night I got back to my car, my check engine light was on. It was like running like crap. My AC wasn't working. And I was like, what is happening?
The
Like
universe is
immediately.
testing you immediately.
Immediately, like literally as soon as you get home.
Oh man.
But I finally got my car back yesterday. It's all fixed. It was something super easy, but it was just more a matter of waiting to get an appointment. And then they had to get the part from a different dealership. So it's just patience. But that's the biggest part of it. You're leaving the retreat in such a good space. And it's okay.
Yeah.
Now take all this information and all these things that you've learned and put it into daily life. And so it's again always a journey and always a
Yeah.
process, but I'm trying my best, especially when life is immediately testing you right away, just being like, okay, I'm just bless and release, like
It's
just
so hard.
roll with the punches and just not let it affect me the way that it used to. I would have gotten so angry. I would have been like, blah, fuck this and blah, everything. And it's just be like, okay, can you guys give me a loaner car? Because I got to get my kid to school. And thankfully they were able to. Thank God I had a little Chevy Malibu. I was zipping around
Nice.
for but yeah, and then just I'm still trying to find a new routine anyways with being in a new house. So
Sure.
that's honestly been nice because I wasn't like in like a set routine anyways going into it because we had only been in the new house like 2 weeks and then I left. And so I didn't really feel like I had found like my new routine yet anyways. So that honestly has been really helpful. It was just we've got this new house and Calvin's not in a crib anymore. He's in a toddler bed. Yeah, it's just trying to find a new routine with new house and taking all of this and putting it into life anyways. So
Yeah.
everything's worked out honestly in the best way it could in that aspect. So
Yeah. Do you have any daily routines that you do of healing stuff like meditation, working out, journaling, things like that? What does that look like for you?
I used to, and I used to write and journal so much more, and I got off of it. And that has been the biggest thing that I've taken of just I need to get back to journaling and writing more. because that's a huge glimmer for me across the board of just even if I'm just angry and I just need to write it all out. And so yeah, that was one of the things that I'm definitely going back to more is my journaling for sure. And meditating, it's always been something that I'm like, oh yeah, I need to do this more. And I like do it and then I fall off of it. That's my goal. I want to get there. I don't currently have a routine of it, but I would like to get to that point for
Yeah,
sure.
I really struggle with meditation to shut my brain off. It's really hard for me to just sit down even for 10 minutes. And I know I should probably do it more as well because when I do it more, I do enjoy the benefits from it, but I just sit there and I think about all the things I need to do like you were talking about earlier and what do I need to do and what happened this week and this conversation I had with this person and that person and this oh shit, I need to do that and oh I need to make sure I do this. And I
Right.
know it's a practice, right? It's called a practice. So you're supposed to practice and get better, but whew, man, that's one that's really hard for me. I do enjoy journaling though. That's always been, I don't do it as often as I used to. I was for a time period doing it every day and I do it a lot less now, but still something that if I feel a real big like pile up of emotions that I need to release, I think that journaling is huge for me.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm excited to get back to it more for sure. And that's one thing my friend, so Gabrielle does intuitive readings as well. And she's done one for me before. We did one back in February together. And she did one at the last day. We were just like literally standing in the ocean. And I was like, she had done some with other people. And I didn't want to like make her feel obligated to do one because I was, oh yeah, if you feel like it, cool. But I don't necessarily feel like I need it and this, that, and the other. And she was like, we were just standing there in the water and she was like, we can do it now. And I was like, oh, like right now? Okay. So she was like, she focuses in and right away my mom and dad came through and
Mm.
she started crying because she was like, your mom is sad that you're sad. And she was which kind of made me start crying. She was like, she's really sad that she can't be here for
Mm.
Calvin and to see Calvin and to be here for you for Calvin and like kind of made me tear up a little bit too. But then she was like, did your dad smoke cigars? On occasion, obviously cigarettes were his choice, but on occasion he would smoke a cigar and she was like, your mom's like leading me through this door. And on the other side, she was like, it was really bright. And then once the light dimmed down a little bit, your dad's just sitting there on the other side, like smoking a cigar, chilling. I was like, yep, sounds like dad.
Aw, that's so
Chilling out,
cool.
so that was good. But she was like, one of the pictures or like images that was really strong for her was like, she was like, I see you sitting on like this patio. And I was like, yeah, our new house has a great back patio.
Yeah.
And she was like, yeah, you're like out there like journaling and writing with a mimosa. And I was like, that sounds fantastic.
Yeah. Can I go there now? No.
Right. So that was good. It's just all verification of this. Yes, these are the things that you need to do and everything. So
So is that
yeah.
what came up with for you a lot, do you think on that weekend was the having was with your parents or was there other things that came up too or
Honestly, not as much about there were things about my parents for sure, but the things that came up with my parents were more of just like a release of
Mm.
them in a way, if that makes sense. It almost just I need to and not forget about them and just
No.
completely let them go, but just like holding on to them as tightly as I
Mm.
feel like I have. And it's always something that I've been trying to of I need to let go. I need to let go. But it's really hard to it's almost you feel like if you do that, if you do let go of the little bits that you're doing them a disservice or you're going to forget about them. And then that's
Mm.
not the case. Like they will always be a part of me. They will always walk alongside me. I know that they're there in spirit when I need them and everything, but it's more just letting go of I don't know, it's hard to put a name to, but just letting go of just the things that you can't really necessarily have or control or with them and just letting them know that I'm okay and I'm here and I know that they're here with me, but yeah, just letting a little bits of that go. That was the biggest thing with my parents. Otherwise, it was more just a realization of this box I had put myself in. And
Yeah.
so
Do you want to talk more
Yeah.
about that?
Yeah, which I what I
Yeah.
talked or touched on about just like feeling like I had dimmed my light and just yeah, I had this realization of just I had made myself think of myself in a very small way, like that I that I wasn't worthy, I'm just so angry all the time that nobody can love me and nobody wants to be around me and I'm not this person that I want to be, so therefore I'm just going to be this
Mm.
prickly person and
Was there something that triggered those feelings or to make you start feeling that way? Do you know?
no, I think it was just a buildup over time because one of the girls who was a friend of mine and a client as well, she at the end of the last day when I opened up and shared a lot and she we were helping clean up and she just turned to me and she was like, I had no idea you were feeling this way. And
Mm.
I was like, most of the time I see you, you're coming in for a massage. That's not my time to unload on you. And that's
Yeah.
your time to unload on me because, you know, you need to work through things and you need to release things. And so she just gave me like a big hug and everything. And I was like, I lost a huge part of myself when my mom died
Mm.
and never really focused on, which I know we talked about in my first episode, but never really took the time to like process through a lot of my grief. And then it was COVID and then it was being a mom and it was just one thing after another that just made me continuously lose myself. Like one thing happened and I lost part of myself and then another thing would happen and I just keep going down this rabbit hole and didn't realize I was down that rabbit hole as far as I was.
Until
So, you
you
know,
start climbing back up, right? And gasping for
yeah.
air. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, which was kind of part of the like the first Sunday, like the first real day that I had a huge shift. It was like, oh my God, I didn't realize how I've been holding my breath, like
Mm.
just so tight and holding things and barricading myself out. Yeah.
It's so frustrating that life throws that shit at us that just makes us feel that way. It's life, right? It's shit happens. But, ugh. And I want to touch for a minute on, because I was going to ask you as you were talking about motherhood maybe being one of those things, because I have heard, obviously, I don't know from experience, but I've heard and I've watched. I mean, with my job, I have talked to so many different women over the course of 20 years in multiple different stages of life. And I feel like I have a pretty decent grasp on some stuff, but I have heard of a lot of women talking about after they become a mom, completely losing themselves and who they are and what they like to do. And because you throw yourself into motherhood and taking care of the
Yeah.
little being, which makes perfect sense, right? Like there's zero
Right.
judgment here, but I have watched so many women have to walk that journey back to themselves, and some do it within the first 5 years, and some do it when they're empty nesters. Like it goes all the way to when their kids are moving out. And I also think that we put that on women in society as well. Like you're supposed to throw yourself into motherhood. You're supposed to
Yeah.
throw yourself into your child and kind of sure wanting to have your own life at the same time, right? So
Right.
I don't know. So
Yeah.
I was
I
going to
mean,
ask you about that to elaborate a little bit more, but
yeah, definitely. I think I'm very thankful and very lucky to be in a day and age where society is shifting with that. We're
thank God.
not, yeah, like there is still, I think moms are so conditioned for so many past generations of the mom does everything. The dads are there to just bring in the money and provide for the family. And that's not necessarily how it is anymore. I talk to clients and women all the time that like they're the ones working and dad's the one staying at home with
Yeah.
the kids. And they're the primary house taker and stuff like that. And my husband, honestly, he does more cooking than I do. That's a huge dynamic difference in our relationship. And so, yeah, I think we as moms and women tend to put a lot more pressure on ourselves. One of the podcasts I listen to is Big Little Feelings. They also have an Instagram page. They talk about, so her one of the girls' husbands comes on all the time, and they did an episode about mom guilt.
Mm.
And it's so weird because it's just like something you feel. It's like almost like maternal, like instinctual, like you're just, if you're not there for your kid 24/7, you're guilty. You feel guilty for not being there. And
Yeah.
that was like one thing that I did at the very beginning. I felt really, and like the week before the retreat, I was like, I shouldn't go. Like, why am I doing this? I shouldn't leave for a week. I'm just going to cancel. And of course, my husband is fantastic and was like, what? No, stop being crazy. Like, you're
Yeah.
going. We've already paid for this. But yeah, they talk about in this podcast, they brought the husband on, and they were like, do you feel like dad guilt? And he's like, no. Nothing at all. And I think that's just the way that our brains work versus a male's brain.
We're more
And
nurturing than men in general. We have been more nurturing. I think that men can be more nurturing. We just have not
sure.
nurtured that part for them. But yeah, I think though, also, again, I'm speaking as someone that hasn't had that direct experience, but I think that as an outsider looking in, and I know this is easier said than done, but you are a better mom when you're taking care of yourself too, right? If you
Yeah.
completely forget about yourself and aren't taking care of yourself, then you're probably not the best mom you could be to your kid. And then also setting
Right.
that example for them that you can take care of yourself too.
Yeah. And then that's a huge part of why I went on this retreat. I'm like, I need to do this for myself, not only for myself, but to be a better mom and to come back and have the patience and be able to, when Calvin's having a meltdown, be able to navigate it a little bit better without being so quick to
Regulate
like snap.
yourself in those moments so that you can then
Yeah.
help him regulate.
Exactly. And teach. And that's part of like being a mom is just like nowadays it's just there's this huge shift in parenting of helping your kids just recognize that their emotions are valid and they
That's
are.
huge.
Yeah, which I you touched on this, but that's I didn't get that as a child. And you mentioned this too about how like neither one of us were taught that as kids. Like when I was having a meltdown in the grocery store as a kid, it was my fault. It was like, and I would get home and I would just be yelled at by your parents of just, you're never going grocery shopping with me ever again because
Yep.
just making you feel like no matter what, whether it was just like, I wanted that snack or I wanted this candy, and it's always no. And then when you're 5 and you're told no, it's the end of the world. And that's another thing. Again, I'm so glad that I'm a mom in this day and age because it's huge. Like it is learning how to help your child regulate their emotions and knowing and understanding that, hey, I understand that like you're having some big emotions right now. Like it's okay. Like we're going to work through this together. If I had that when I was a kid, like
Yeah.
mind blown,
Yeah.
mind blown.
Yeah.
So, and I wasn't taught that as a child. So it's hard to shift your thinking because we always parent the way that we were
Yeah.
parented. And
Because that's all you
so
know.
having to like literally break those molds and change everything. But being a parent is also, you're learning every day. And when he's a baby, you're like bringing him home from the hospital. You're like, how the fuck am I going to do this? What do I do with this thing?
Yeah.
But they're little blobs and then they mold and you grow together. And so thankfully it's not like you have to have all the answers on day one. Like it's all about learning as you go. And every child's different. Like every person is different. As he goes along and goes through developmental stages, you're learning how to navigate that with him. And so it's always a learning process. Again, going back to life is a journey.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think especially with boys too, like you're talking about feelings and stuff, like boys were taught for so long that they're not allowed to show feelings. They're not supposed
Yeah.
to. They're not supposed to feel their feelings. And some boys definitely feel them more than others. And I think that should be acceptable. But a lot of boys from a young age are taught no, you're not allowed. You got to be manly and you got to do the manly things and you got to do, and it's just, that's not how every kid's personality is. So I think that's huge that you're trying to nurture those feelings for him and that
Yeah, yeah.
sensitivity.
Right? Yeah, it's all a learning curve.
Yeah.
But yeah, just going back to, I'm very lucky where our kids' generation is going to be the ones to shake things up, which we need.
Yeah, for sure. Um,
So, yeah.
so what's your, we'll start to close up here, but what's your, you said you want to get into more of a routine of some things like, okay, post healing trip now, what are you feeling now for the future? What do you want for future Kellen right now?
Mostly, I just want future Kellen to know that she's loved. She has a lot more power and ambition than she thinks she does. That's the huge part, but also just, I really want to get back into journaling and writing more. I have a bucket list item that
Oh,
I've been a little terrified of doing, but I've been wanting to do forever. And so hopefully with writing, I can make that
yeah.
actually fun.
I think also meditating would help with that too. I will say, and also to touch on meditating, I know that there are many forms of meditating. I actually had the full download of this podcast idea come to me while I was running and listening to another
Oh,
podcast. So I think that's also a bit of a form of meditation is running and things like
oh
that.
yeah.
You never know how it's going to drop in like the full clear picture of whatever it is you're trying to do.
Right. Yeah, definitely.
That's
So
so cool. All right. What about tips, advice for anybody out there listening, suggestions? And we can link all the information to the retreat that you did and to Gab and in the show notes in case anybody else is interested in that experience.
yes, highly recommend doing a retreat. If you're experiencing any sort of level of burnout, really, just taking that time and it's hard to do it in daily life. Like, and that's
Hmm.
the biggest thing that she talks about is like removing yourself from your daily routines and the things that are triggering you to stay in that burnt out, like frozen, shut down stage, putting yourself, fully immersing yourself in a retreat and in this space. That's the biggest part of it. So yeah, definitely highly recommend going on a retreat and it doesn't necessarily have to be one that Gabs runs. She did a fantastic job. She's a dear friend of mine. So of course, I think that she is just amazing no matter what, but also just going through it and experiencing what she does, she's so magical. Like she's got a gift for sure. But she does do coaching and she'll do a lot of stuff just like one-on-one with you outside of retreats too. So if you're just looking for some guidance in daily life, because you don't maybe not necessarily be able to go on a retreat. But yeah, highly recommend talking with her, listening to stuff that she talks about. Yeah, her Instagram page alone is just, she shares some amazing stuff and some good stuff that is just like little reminders here and there. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
remember
You're
that part.
you're so right that getting caught up in the daily life, like it's so hard to work on yourself and heal yourself. And I know I've had several experiences where I thought I was working through my shit. And then when I went on one of my vacations where I removed my normal daily everything life, I'm like, oh, fuck, I'm not working through anything.
Yeah,
And it
yeah.
all comes crashing down on you. So even if you can get away for like disconnect from the everyday life of some sort, it's scary and it's hard but it's also so worth it in the end, right? When you
Oh
do get on
yes.
the other side of working through this shit.
Yeah, definitely.
So, yeah. All
So
right.
worth
So big
it.
takeaway, biggest takeaway. What was the biggest takeaway?
Oh, I'll read you my note from my
Okay.
higher self to my current self because that'll
Ooh.
pretty much describe my outcome, I guess, in the best way to sum it up. So my message was, it'll be okay. You will find your way back. It might be a hard and painful journey, might take longer than you want, but the finish line will bring all of your desires to life.
I'm
Or
gonna,
sorry, not life. I mean, could work either way.
I'm like tearing up just hearing that. That's so good.
Oh,
And that can go for so many different situations. That's
right.
so good. Such a good note to end on.
I had done also a little guitar sticker and I wrote, "You're a rock
Oh,
star."
oh, I love that. I love that. Ah, I'm
Yeah.
so glad we had this conversation. I really wanted to get Kellen back on here while this whole retreat thing was fresh in her mind and all the feelings. Thank you so much for coming back on and sharing all of that. That is huge. And how often do we hear people's like journeys after they've been through it? Like we don't really talk about working through it in the moment. You hear about it as it's happening and then you hear about it afterwards. And we don't really talk a lot about the messy middles. I love that you came on and shared that. So thank you so much. I appreciate you for being vulnerable and sharing all the things.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me back on.
Thanks. And maybe we'll have you on again. I love having people back. It's like one of my favorite things right now.
Sounds
So,
good.
yeah, thank you, Kellen, so much. And thank you, everyone, for listening. And we'll see y'all on the next episode.
Bye.